Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to Ed Explorer. I want to ask this question. Before I even ask the question, someone approached me and asked me in an interview that I was and asked me that you guys always talk about the continent of Africa. You try to project an image of unity, and Africa is so focused that Africa is working together, the African continental free trade area, and that things are going well. Africa is rising. Africa is really focused now. It's not what it used to be. Then I stopped him. I said, hey, wait a second. What is your question? And then I was shocked. He said to me, why can Africa not come together and work as one? And I laughed. I said, let's sit down. Because then I start trying to explain a few other things. Look, folks, sometimes it's the most difficult question that each time as a geopolitical analyst, I sit and I want to reflect on why you guys cannot really come to what's really holding you. What is really holding the continent of Africa back? Why can the governments, the officials, why can't this be a priority? You are so divided that you think you are unified or you are in unity in a number of areas. No. The trade wars and the tariffs and a whole lot of cutting of aid, reduction of support, it has exposed how ununified the continent is. As a geopolitical analyst, we try to project that collaborative approach and signal the areas which can be, because we are not here. I'm not here to sugarcoat things, because I am not working for the government. I don't work for any government in the continent of Africa. I don't work for any think tank. I don't work for any support. I don't ask you to give me your money. I don't ask you to join my membership and to give me money. I'm not held by any of you. I'm just simply telling you the truth that because of the cracks in your system, because of the cracks that can be sensed within your infrastructure, because of the cracks that can be sensed within your organizations, because of your division, because of every country is so consumed by their sense of individual nationalism, not the greater good of the continent. It shows your geopolitical partners how weak, how divided, how unstable, how easily penetrable, and how easily divided the continent can be. Like I said in previous episode, I have been to 40 countries across the continent of Africa. And there is a problem in terms of this unity communication or conversation. Each time this topic is brought on the table and we sit in our small countries and start debating issues. If you go sign a deal with the European Union, with China, with Russia, as individual countries, the United States of America, other partners across the Middle East, Turkey, India, as individual countries, you're just fragmenting your sense of collaboration and unity. So your geopolitical partners, to an extent, understand how you reason, how you approach business, how you look at the financial aspect of it. So it's easy to divide you guys. It's just a matter of just understanding how you think and how you approach situations. So they can just easily go with one country and sign a deal, and the citizens of that country will jubilate that we've obtained this particular contract, while at the same time the other countries feel left aside and they feel that they cannot make any contribution and they cannot work together, and that the other country that signed the deal feels that they have arrived. This is fundamentally wrong. The African Continental Free Trade Area has been put in the back burner. Nobody talks about it anymore. It's not being discussed anywhere. We follow the issues. We understand this on a daily basis. We live our life on the geopolitical environment. We sleep geopolitics, we drink geopolitics, we research it, we understand the fabrics of it. So when I'm talking here, I'm talking from the point of experience. If you cannot demonstrate to an extent to put the ego aside and put the continent first, you will be played around all the time. Because that's what your partners understand, that you are so divided that it's unimaginable. I can just pick one thing and throw on the table to tell you how divided you are on it. Your borders are so closed that even the borders of, Africa's borders are so closed now in the 21st century as compared to when the continent of Africa was fighting for independence. It's difficult to travel among the continent of Africa so easily. I understand there are some regional groupings that are working together to put things together, but it's not representative of what the continent of Africa needs at this time. It is shameful. And this guy was just challenging me back and forth. I was giving my points on supporting the continent, that Africa is working on issues. Africa is building itself, trying to mitigate the risks that are involved. But he was just lambasting me all the time. And my argument had no ground, because he said to me that the European Union, this is where I almost got pissed off when he was talking on this. He said the European Union has 20% of Trump's tariff. And Lesotho has 50%. South Africa has 31%. And a whole lot of other countries in the continent of Africa. If you put that together, it's hundreds of percent. How can that impact a single continent? And European Union has 20%. Sometimes we don't have to be talking, we just have to, because people are so emotional. They come on the comment section, oh, the explorer, you are exploring the issues, you are looking at it too deep. We must look at it deeper. You are so divided, extremely deep. There are airlines in the continent of Africa that cannot land in a number of European countries. This is not between Europe and Africa, no. I'm giving you specific examples here. There are airlines in the continent of Africa that cannot land in a European capital. As a result of that, they do not or have not passed the certification, the safety regulations. Why? There are other airlines in the continent of Africa that can land in some particular cities, because European airlines to an extent can fly to a number of African countries from the European Union very easily, without even or just using the one agreement that European Union signed with that particular country. And for example, let me say the EU signed a deal with a country like Djibouti for airlines to fly into Djibouti. And more than 20 airlines from Europe or from European Union will fly into that country. But Djibouti cannot fly to almost all of those different capitals across Europe. The former CEO of Ethiopian Airlines explained this to an extent that it is an unfair arrangement. But how can you blame Europe? You can't blame Europe, because Africans, government and systems want to deal with Europe or the European Union as individual countries. So these are some of the impact. That's why you see Ethiopian Airlines will land in Brussels and may not land in some other countries. They go to some specific hubs. Kenya Airways will go into. So these arrangements are very hidden. It's not clear. You see other countries signing deals with a number of other countries in Europe or in Africa, and these deals are so hidden. So they fragment your standing, they fragment your way of approach, they fragment your thinking, your economy. You are disintegrated so openly that sometimes I think that these European partners just laugh at the way the continent is so easily penetrable. If the richest man, richest black man alive, can struggle to travel within his own continent, it means there is a problem. I'm telling you, geopolitically, it's a disgrace that if Dangote can find it difficult. We heard about the African Union passport, and I know some of you, I know what you are thinking. Oh, Displorer, you are digging deeper, you're talking about. But I have to tell you, because there's just no other way. CNN will not tell you, BBC will not tell you. I just have to tell you that this is disgraceful. And we got to fix this. If Dangote, who has invested billions in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in a number of other countries across the continent, find it difficult, drop his passports at the embassies to get visas, then you sit and tell me everything is fine, and then we're not serious. That's why the Europeans, I was surprised because the CEO of Total, embarrassed continent of Africa, was saying that he can travel very freely. He got his passport, French passport. He moves around very easily. And the richest man in Africa, the richest black man alive, cannot move freely in his own continent. Wake up, folks. The odds are against you. And I was trying to make that point, and this guy told me that Africa cannot respond because they have cut off aid, that Donald Trump is simply trying to tell African countries that you guys are insignificant to an extent in terms of trade and collaboration, that the United States of America must put its citizens first. I'm not blaming Donald Trump. Trump ran on to save his own country, irrespective of the craziness we are seeing happening in the United States at the moment. But again, let's pretend nothing is happening in the country of the United States of America. Every leader will do that for his own people. And you too have to do that for your people. We are still talking about the unity here of the continent of Africa. Look at your agriculture sector. It's devastated. If the pandemic never taught Africa anything, if the pandemic did not tell Africa that you are on your own, then nothing else. You remember those days, because now the rain is falling, sun is shining, and people forgot how it was when the South African president was informed on the telephone that we are banning all flights from Southern Africa to Europe. I mean, it was a president of a major country in the continent of Africa got told that we are banning flight. No, they didn't even want to hear his opinion. Can you do that to the United States? So this aspect of fragmentation is a terrible situation that the continent of Africa must face. The unity we are talking about. Without unity, you cannot stand the European Union. You cannot stand the United States of America. Just look how fragmented Africa was during the Russian-Ukrainian war. We have leaders who stood on one side, the others who stood on the other side, the others who were standing on the fence. As a result of that, the continent of Africa cannot have a single voice on almost everything. I mean, we do not have a voice on every single topic. I just put it on the table. Sit with your friend, sit with your African friends or your friends from Europe, from the United States, from China, from Russia, from the Middle East, from across any part of the world, and pick a topic and put on the table and discuss it and see where Africa stands. Sometimes we say these things and people say, oh, you critical on these issues today. We talk about the geopolitical engagement that Africa has. If we go in as a single nation, single individual countries, we fail. I mean, if Africa approach every global issue, whether it's climate change, whether it's freshwater lakes, whether it is economic engagement, pharmaceutical issues, we fail. We are talking about the impact of climate change in the continent of Africa, and African countries have different voices on these issues. Some countries want to champion the climate impact that they did not cause, and you are being told to leave your growth and investment and your fossil fuel on the ground to tackle a problem that those that caused it are still playing with the finances. You are joking. Do you believe that the United States of America, of all, that consumes oil like what I can imagine, will leave its resources on the ground to start following climate change? I'm not saying there's no climate change or there is climate change does not exist. No, I don't know what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is there must be a balance, and this balance is critical. It must be on Africa's favor. Look at Africa's soil from Namibia to recently Kenya to Nigeria to Ghana, oils coming out to Angola, just to mention a few, Gabon. And you are really like following the climate issue as if you are championing it now. Look, there is climate change impact in Malawi and a number of countries in the continent of Africa. But you must come to the table with one voice. Look at Paris, COP, the COP in Glasgow. Look at what happened in Kenya. Look at what happened in the Middle East. More importantly, in the UAE. And look at Azerbaijan in Brazil. You are just so fragmented in your approach. You do not have a single position on all of these issues. Because your geopolitical partners come behind and try to settle discussions on the sideline. It should go on a one particular platform that everyone sees. Africa, you have to be united. If you are not, your geopolitical partners has used this as your main weakness to fragment you further. Donald Trump is an opportunity for the continent of Africa to revise its position in several areas. And I wanted to tell this friend that the continent of Africa is working on these issues and is making some important changes. And he hit me hard and said, but a number of budgets in your continent is being funded by foreign governments. So this is where I almost shut up, but I said, I'm going to stand my grounds. I said, funding budget doesn't matter. But between you and I, if someone funds the budget of your country and funds certain infrastructural and social issues in your country, according to the Kenyan president who said, he who pays the piper choose the tune. I couldn't agree with him more. And this is why we continue to see all of these particular situations happening in the continent of Africa. That the continent is become a military base for foreign governments and foreign countries. I'm not saying that the continent of Africa cannot work alongside its partners around the world. But the problem becomes when the continent is used as a landing spot for military bases from a woeful lot of countries that have decided that Africa, it's the center of all dumping in terms of their particular military collaboration. So there is a problem in this space. So the continent of Africa must revise a strategic partnership and look for other partners that can give them the expertise that they need. Look at the Sahel countries. They are facing jihadist challenges, and you expect them to continue to sit with a failed organization like AGOA, where France has exploited this region for centuries, and now they go closer to Russia. It's as a result of that they came together as the alliance of Sahelian state. That's why they are able to figure out where they are heading to. Now, if everybody's working on their own, South Africa is doing its own, Ghana is doing his, Namibia and other countries, everyone is trying to tackle this problem from an individual perspective. It's not going to work. It's really not going to work. Because if Lesotho has 50% and South Africa has 31%, and then other countries have different percentages, and then the whole of European Union have just 20%. So there is a problem. If the United States of America was to give tariffs in the continent of Africa as an African Union, it will be not 50%. It could be maybe 20% or 15%, considering Africans' economies. That because they are dealing with over 50 countries, even if you give 5% per country, if you multiply that across the over 50 countries in the continent of Africa, that changed the whole story. So this is not fair when we are talking about how to engage and break the unity that is needed in the continent of Africa. There are just so many areas that things are going wrong. Absolutely devastating. If we do not sit up, Russia-Ukrainian war, the pandemic, and the continent of Africa with a massive land, and we're still importing certain products, certain foodstuff, and some countries even go to an extent to import even toothpicks from some countries around the world, where you have millions of trees across vast forest lands across the continent of Africa. Sometimes I look at the trade figures and I hide myself. The guy was continuing to hit me on trade. And you want to compete with European farmers. European Union fund its farmers. And the balance of trade between Europe and Africa is devastating. Make no mistake, irrespective of what you think about China, China has transformed Africa's perspective, and China has made significant contribution in the continent of Africa. I don't care what you want to talk about. But like the president of the country of Sierra Leone said, that it is left to Africans' individual administrations to figure out how they make use of these loans. Africa, your disunity and your disintegration, your individualism is breaking your backs. Donald Trump just reminded you all that insignificantly as he thought that the continent of Africa is, other countries think Africa possesses incredible opportunity. Come together and build your infrastructures. Come together and build your ecosystem, because your geopolitical partners are playing on your weakness. They are disintegrating your systems, your educational systems. How can, according to the former African Union ambassador, how can an NGO leave New York City and come to the continent of African nation and build schools behind your neighborhood? Sometimes I laugh. An NGO will leave New York and come, or leave Japan and come to an African country and building a laboratory in a neighborhood that have been existing for years. And when your policies are being influenced, later you complain. Look, your disunity and disintegration is costing you hugely in terms of your growth and development. Like the former African Union ambassador said, it is in the mind. If the mind cannot be educated, then the body is just nothing. That's how other geopolitical partners have observed Africa, that Africa is easy to be divided, Africa is easy to be separated, Africans are easy to be sidelined, they are easy to manipulate it, they are very easy to be told what to do. They are so very easy that African governments or systems, we believe that things are free. There is just no free lunch. There is no free lunch. I've done my own fair share of traveling. There is just nothing that is free. Make no mistake, the world is not waiting for you. They have realized you are so divided that to an extent you cannot have a common position. Before I close this, I have a lot to say, but let me close it here. The recent veto power that was floated at the United States of America by the former President Joe Biden, talking about Africa having a veto power at the Security Council. Do you hear people talking about it? They've noticed that Africans are so easy to be divided. The former Ambassador Greenfield came and tried to hit the heads of African countries. Nigeria said they will be the ones to have the veto power. Some said South Africa want to be. Ethiopia said, I will be. According to news media, other countries say that countries from the Sahel, and some talk about that African Union should be. Folks, listen, we are a joke. We are really joking because I think we still don't understand what is at stake. Donald Trump just reminded Africans that you are very fragile, that you are vulnerable in a number of areas. And the vulnerability is what I'm concerned here. Because it seems as if we are not worried that something is not correct somewhere. A lot is not correct. We got to sit up. The tariff, the aid cutting, the pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war, a lot of internal African conflict. Africans cannot move freely. The freedom of the press, the freedom of communication, the freedom of movement and integration, the African Continental Free Trade Area, and Africans' free movement, collaboration, partnerships, internal studies, working together, alumni negotiation, moving between one country. Africans decide not to work together. You prefer to work with other countries out of your continent. What a disgrace. What a shameful thing it's been. I'm not making this up. I'm just basically telling you what the data is showing. It is so expensive to travel across the continent of Africa. It is expensive. If you want to get pissed off what I'm saying, so be it. It's so expensive to travel within the continent of Africa. I'm not a spring chicken. I travel 40 countries in the continent of Africa. And that's what I'm saying. There is a problem. And this needs to be addressed. It must be addressed, because if it is not addressed, Europeans will laugh at you. The Americans will laugh and manipulate you. Asian partners will be wondering what's going on with the continent. And Russia will be looking at you like, what the hell is going on? Turkey, look at projects across the continent of Africa. Your institutions and your organizations, your projects are being funded by foreign organizations. And later, we talk about that we've been controlled, we've been manipulated, we've been dealt with. I see there are some, not airports, not bridges, forget about that. There are some important buildings in some continent of African countries that are being built by foreign governments. Where is the oil money? Where is the natural resources money? Can they build buildings? Can they build infrastructure? Can they build those little things? We do think sometimes these partners laugh at us. It's a behavior of people who are not ready to take initiative. Africa have been criticized a lot for not taking the initiative, and this is trickling down. Donald Trump has woken up the continent. He's basically saying that he's sensed the cracks and the weakness in a whole lot of areas. And we've decided not to respond. If we do not respond at this time strategically from the geopolitical standpoint, it is done. I'm not making this up. I'm basically telling you all that a lot is at stake. Africa, it's about time that we go back to the drawing board and revise the relationship. The geopolitical landscape has shifted drastically, and Europe gets the message. Asian partners get the message. Other Latin American partners get the message. The Middle East has gotten the message clear. And the continent of Africa must speak as one voice. We got to make necessary sacrifices to keep things aside and come to the table as one. If you don't do that, you are done in this global environment. The multipolarism that presidents and leaders around the world are talking about, it's not a joke. The United States hegemonic approach in some countries, and specifically Egypt and South Africa, as we saw how Djibouti refused the United States to use its territory, it's not going to stop overnight. Just wake up, Africa, and sit up. I want to thank you for watching. Let me know in the comment section if you think this is overdue and if Africa has replaced emotional strategic focus instead of looking at things that will benefit the continent as one. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.